Okay, we're live now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Everson. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, staff. We'll call this Cattle Parish Commission long-range planning meeting to session. It's March the 10th. I got 10:01 a.m. Mr. Everson, roll call, please.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Hopkins. See ya, but I didn't hear you.
Here.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Johnson. All right, you have 3 of 5 present, and that is a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Commissioners, please silence your cell phones. We will start with our invocation led by Commissioner Hopkins, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Jackson.
Please bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day.
Thank you, Lord God.
Thank you for all that you've given
Thank you.
each and every one of us, dear Lord. Be with us as this committee goes through the business of the parish. Help to guide us and make decisions that benefit all in this parish, oh Lord. Dear Lord, bless those people that are hurting today, that are sick, are needing your loving touch for health. Lord, bless this state, this parish, and this country. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Just read it in, buddy. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson, are you on the line?
Yes, if everyone active and retired military and all those who are allowed to render the proper salute, everyone else, place your hand over your heart and say in silence as I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Moving along, do we have any agenda additions?
I'm not aware of any other than, let's see, there was a mention of an item yesterday, but I think it may be for a committee meeting later in the day. Yeah, no, there are no, I'm not aware of any additional agenda additions. So at this point, if there was a motion to approve the consideration of items under Louisiana Revised Statutes 42:17.1, that would be appropriate.
Chair, was that a second?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Jackson, I didn't hear your response.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Young. And Commissioner Johnson. Okay, that motion passes with 3 of 5, with 2 absent. Though I did just see somebody logging in, but it doesn't appear they're all the way logged in yet. So we have, but that motion does carry.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Everson. Moving along, public
At
comment.
this point is your certificate of teleconferences attached, and then public comments. We have the number, if anybody would like to call, is 318-226-6596. We have not received any electronic comments for the meeting today. But again, that number is 318-226-6596.
I did have an email this morning from some people from North Caddo that stated they were going to call in. I don't know if they're going to call or not. So we'll give about 30 seconds to allow people to call in. No phones ringing?
Doesn't look like it. I hadn't heard any yet.
We'll move along to the next order of business.
All right, that next item is new business, under which we have our first item, 6.1, is to discuss the parish planning and zoning options.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Everson. And I know we have Henry on board. I sent Henry a list of some items I wanted him to cover, just to kind of keep the parish abreast, the citizens, the commissioners, all involved of HB 697, and what changed when that vote was taken, and where to look from here from the commission standpoint on what we need to do to accomplish a zoning for Caddo Parish. Henry, if you'd like to take the floor from here.
Sure, I'd be glad to. And I want to give a brief history because I think it sets up the context for where we are as a parish. In the 50s, the city requested that the parish cooperatively engage in planning and zoning outside the city limits. And at the time, while the parish had a legislative charter, the city had a legislative charter, the parish as a police jury did not have the authority to do planning and zoning. So they went to the legislature, and originally it was Act 34 of 1954, which set out the framework for not only the city and the parish to collaborate in the MPC as we know it today, but also authorized the parish to do zoning. There was a court challenge to that, and so then ultimately they came back and reenacted the same law as Act 52 of 1962, which we now know as Louisiana Revised Statutes, Title 33, Sections 140.1 to 140.39, which in these statutes are the ones that set out for the framework for the current Shreveport Caddo MPC. In 1974, Louisiana adopted a new constitution which provided broad powers for home rule charter local governments. And following that, then the city adopted a new charter in 1978, and the parish adopted a home rule charter that took effect in 1984. Act 294 of the 2020 regular session, which was House Bill 697, removed the parish from Revised Statutes Title 33, Section 140.1 to 140.39, effective January 1 of 2022. So then the question is, what authority would the parish have going forward to engage in planning and zoning? As a home rule charter entity, the parish had back in 1984 and still does, the authority to engage in planning and zoning on its own without legislative authority. So at this point, come January 1st, 2022, what will happen is that the UDC, which is the parish's planning and zoning ordinance at this point, will continue in effect since it was legally adopted at the time. It was legally adopted at the time it was legal, and the parish will have and still have the authority to have a planning and zoning ordinance. Then another question has to do with the master plan. Once again, the 2030 master plan was validly adopted at the time, and so it continues in effect. The questions at this point then are, how do we go forward? Basically, because the parish has authority to do planning and zoning, the question then comes, do we do it entirely on our own, creating our own planning commission, our own zoning board of appeals, and our own staff to support that? Or do we create our own parish planning commission and parish zoning board of appeals and contract with the city/MPC to do the staffing, the support services for that? And I'll answer any questions that anybody has about all this.
Thank you, Attorney Bernstein. Any commissioners that have any questions, go ahead and get on the board or just wave at me and I'll call on you. I see Commissioner Burrell. Go ahead and lead us off, sir. I think he may be muted. Is Commissioner Burrell? Yes. Commissioner Burrell, you're muted.
Okay. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I'm just sitting in on the meeting because I guess I've spent 22 years in planning, so I'm always interested in long-range planning. But given the fact that we have a planning, a planning mechanism to deal with the rural, because it appears that that's where we are having our issues, not in the urban centers, but in the rural. Can we not again, according to Mr. Bernstein, set up whatever operation we need to do and contract back to the MPC that portion? Is that still viable, or does it
Commissioner,
conflict?
thank you for your attendance and your wisdom when it comes to planning on this. Thanks for attending. Attorney Bernstein, that's a great question. You want to take that?
Sure. Commissioner Burrell, the parish does have that authority to do just as you're suggesting. That is that we could set up our own boards and then go back to the MPC and ask the MPC to provide the staff functions so that applications and paperwork, review of that paperwork would all be happening using the current MPC staff. But when those applications come in front of a planning and zoning commission for a vote, they would be in front of a zoning commission that you as commissioners have appointed.
Okay, well, now I want to look at the money and how the budget will affect this. Will that be a separate budget from the MPC? Because I'm understanding that if we wind up taking on this rural portion ourselves as an independent entity, then we take the funding from the MPC, or does where the city funds it alone versus us funding it in conjunction with the city? I guess I'm a little confused because the city is in the parish, because I represent an urban district. So will there be a total separation of funding, or in order to contract back with the MPC if we take on the rural portion?
Commissioner, if I could, this is going to be one of the nuts and bolts of this process. Obviously, come next year, because we're not functioning under that state law, which provides us to cooperate with the city with regard to the MPC. If the parish were to choose to use the MPC staff, as we're discussing, obviously the parish is going to have to enter into an agreement with the city to pay for those services. Of course, on the other hand, if the parish, if you all in your wisdom decide that it's better to do all this in-house, then you're going to have to appropriate money to pay for those salaries, those staff, those sorts of things. So yes, this is one of the nuts and bolts questions that the administration and the commission are going to have to deal with in the coming months.
My final point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not trying to dominate your meeting, but it's just a thinking process, is that those urban districts that's in the city, regardless, since they are in the parish also, then I'll assume that we would have to somehow help fund the MPC anyway, because they are in the parish, unless the agreement says that anything that's in the city, then the city fund it, and anything in the parish, then the parish totally fund it. If not, if we wind up taking on the rural portion of the planning, we will be, I guess, paying twice for the MPC to plan the urban portion, and the MPC that will plan the, or should I say, we'll use their staff for the rural portion. So it seems like we're kind of double dipping here, and I don't know how that overlaps. You understand my question, Mr. Bernstein?
I do, and Commissioner, within the city, the jurisdiction to do zoning and planning will be the MPC under the city's authority, and so the parish won't have the responsibility of paying for that. Okay. So it'll solely be the planning and zoning efforts outside of the city limits that the parish would be responsible for, both in terms of authority and also in terms of budget.
So we'll be getting our urban portion done for free.
Well, the citizens that live within the city through the taxes paid to the city will be paying for those services.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. No, and you're right in line with my thought process on the how and then the how much. So on that same token, Attorney Bernstein, similar to Greenwood, Oil City, and Blanchard, we don't have to pay those respective NPCs. Those city members pay for their own.
Right. I mean, they would do that within, their jurisdictions. And so we would only be looking at planning and zoning in the unincorporated areas of the parish.
I understand. Okay. Commissioner Hopkins almost gave you a raise or a demotion, however you look at it.
I've been called other things, so it wouldn't really matter. I don't have any questions, but I kind of want to just lay out my thought on this whole situation, because I've got a huge district, rural part that it's going to affect my district probably the most, and then Ed's second. But basically, I think we're at the point now where we need to look at authorizing the administrator to negotiate with the proper party, whether that's the NPC or Shreveport. I've heard it a couple different ways, for the NPC to administer and enforce zoning regulations. We need to know what the cost is for that, because at the same time, we need administration to give us a cost to do it on our own. So we can take what the cost is for the NPC to do it for us, or what the cost is to set up our own department. And we need to be able to make our decision based on that information. Secondly, I believe wholeheartedly we need a master plan of our own. One of the biggest points of contention in last year's situation was that this is a master plan currently written for the urban area and not for the rural area. So I think we're going to have to spend some money, and I have no clue what that would be, but I think we need to look at adopting our own master plan for the unincorporated areas of Caddo Parish. Thirdly, on setting up a board, I think we need a board of 5 members, 7 members, coming from only the rural area, because Shreveport has their zoning board, Oil City has theirs, Greenwood has theirs, Blanchard, so on and on. They have that authority. We have no authority doing anything in their municipalities. So those board members need to come from the rural area. They need to be qualified voters. And then at the same time, we need to be setting up the powers of that board. We'll have to at the same time set up a ZBA. And I'm not sure on the number on that. The smaller, the better, because I think there's very few ZBA cases. But if we could get away with 3, that'd be great. But I don't know what those numbers will be. And then finally, we would need to set up our zoning designations. And I think we need to begin with a very simplistic zoning designations, like RA, R1, C1, and I1. And if you look in chapter 38 of our ordinance book, we've got the definition of each one of zoning, of residential, commercial, and then industrial. But we need to start with, we don't need to get too excited and try to do too much at one time. We need to begin a process and let it grow with time. And that's kind of the way I see everything. But I think we do have to start with allowing our administrator to begin negotiations with the proper party to see what our costs will be on contracting that NPC, administering, and doing the enforcement. I think that's an important part we need to start with right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Attorney Bernstein, does this committee need to create a motion to authorize the administrator, or as the executive member of the parish, can he do that on his own?
Commissioner, in line with Dr. Wilson's letter to you all and recommendations he put in there, I think it would be better if the committee went ahead and did as you suggested. That is, a vote to authorize the administrator to go forward, just so that he, in dealing with the city, can say, I've got the authority of the commission behind me to do this.
Okay. And Commissioner Jackson, I see you. Just one more question really quick. Does the authorization need to allow the administrator to negotiate with the city or the Metropolitan Planning Commission? Which legal entity does he need to work with?
Commissioner, I'm going to defer to the city on that, because since come January 1st, 2022, the parish is not a part of the MPC. So the status of the MPC, I think, is going to be an issue for the city, and as a sort of a matter of not getting into their business and they're not getting into our business, I would defer to the city and the MPC as to whether or not the negotiations would be directly with the MPC or whether the negotiations would be with the city. I think that's a question for them to answer, not for us.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Commissioner Jackson, I see you on the board. He may have jumped on the other. I know he's on the housing committee meeting right now. So when he gets, are you back, Commissioner Jackson? That was Commissioner Brown. Give me 1 second, Commissioner Brown. I have Dr. Wilson that wanted to speak on this. Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Hey, Attorney Bernstein, if we move towards addressing only the rural area concerns, what happens to the urban areas, urban commissioners? Will they have input on appeal for their constituents? It will not be any appeal process with planning matters anymore.
If it is a zoning matter within the city, then that's going to come up to whatever planning and zoning commission the city has going forward. And so that would be, and then an appeal from there would be to the city council.
So then there'll be no more inputs from the commission on urban matters as relates to planning.
I don't know that I would say there's no input, because I certainly think they as they have done in the past can share their thoughts and participate in it. But in terms of having an official vote, that would not be coming to the commission. And certainly that's not the matter now. I mean, a zoning case within the city limits, if it is appealed from the planning commission, it is appealed to the city council. And so the only cases that were coming to the parish commission were those cases outside the city limits currently.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Along the same lines of discussion that Dr. Wilson and Attorney Bernstein is saying here, then it appears that for us urban commissioners, then we will no longer have any voting members on, or recommend, because we will not be part of the MPC. Is what I'm hearing. And if we're not part of the MPC, then we have no voice.
Well, I don't believe we're part of the MPC now, other than the fact that we appoint a member. But Attorney Bernstein, you want to?
Well, that's our voice.
Right, but it's also, I think, and I think probably Commissioner Hopkins could probably comment to this, is that it's a vice versa situation, because you also have city appointed members of the MPC that are rendering opinions on parish zoning matters.
Right, it goes both ways.
Yeah, and a point of clarification on this, I know you just got on the board about a year ago. The start of this entire process, I think, was predicated on the fact the rural citizens didn't like the fact that the urban commissioners, city councilmen could vote on something that affected them, and they didn't even live in their neighborhood, and they were forced to adhere to rules that resided within the urban area. That was pretty much the start of this entire path.
But Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Another question, then, based upon what Todd, the proposal that Todd was trying to put forth, could we not do what he wants, even under the rural UDC or rural?
We could have, Mr. Burrell, give me 1 second, hold that thought. I'm going to get Attorney Bernstein to address that. However, Commissioner Jackson's back on, and I want to catch him before he has to hop on. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We got you.
No, I'm sorry, I'm kind of doing double duty over here today. I'm on a housing corporation board as well, board meeting as well. But it from what I hear and from what it sounds like, and I don't know who this question is directed to, but it sounds like we are considering expanding and growing government in at least two or three different layers. We're going to add in a board. We can potentially add more people to the parish staff. I mean, is that what I'm saying, Dr. Wilson?
It's a possibility.
Okay, because I hate to put my good government Republican hat on. It's just, I don't know. I'm just confused that if we're gonna add, if we got to add a planning board, then we got to add a zoning board, and then you got to have staff to interact with them and be responsive to them. That just seems like a whole lot being added. And I'm not saying the status quo is perfect. I'm not saying the status quo is the way to go either. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of, I often hear us say that, we want to be efficient. We want the process for developers and the business community to be as simple and simplistic. And so now it seems like we're opening the door to starting from scratch. So is that the direction it seems like this could possibly go?
Mr. Jackson, I'll take the question. You mentioned you didn't know who it was going to, but we're in the fact-finding phase. I think from what Commissioner Hopkins laid out, there's about 3 different options or areas, and I'm with Commissioner Burrell on I'd like to see what's the most cost-effective. So what our goal is, or at least what it sounds like our goal is about to be, is to authorize the parish administrator to start reaching out to the city and the MPC and gathering some options for the commissioners. And then we'll come back in another long-range planning meeting as soon as possible, because we need to get this done before obviously next year. And I'd like to get it done before the summer's up because we need to research this. To authorize him to start getting us those fact findings and then present to us some different options. And then from there, we start dialing down. Do we contract the NPC? Do we do it with our own staff? Do we work with the city or the NPC? What's going to be the amount of work? So that's, I'm assuming that's what's about to happen is, and I'll make the motion to do that if nobody else does.
Yeah. Commissioner Chavez?
Yes, sir, Dr. Wilson.
Said the question I have for this committee, are we moving towards parish-wide planning and beyond the metropolitan planning limits into the rural areas as well?
Dr. Wilson, that's a great question. Attorney Bernstein, with
that's what I guess that's Dr. Wilson. I think you just basically simplified. Yes, I couldn't put it in those terms, but I think you just simplified because it just seems like that's where we're headed. But our understanding was that they didn't want that in that area. So I'm trying to figure out what is it.
Commissioner Jackson is correct. The rural area did not want the plane, but Attorney Bernstein, under House Bill 697, did we in fact change legislation that we now have to have zoning parish-wide? Is that what was accomplished? That's what I was told. So that's why I want to get on the record. What actually transpired via House Bill 697?
And Commissioner, you're correct, because the difficulty is, as a matter of constitutional protections, of equal protection of the laws, you're not going to be able to tell somebody on one side of the road that you are subject to zoning and somebody on the other side of the road you're not subject to zoning. So it's an all or nothing matter.
Okay,
Now,
so
and I'd make the point, I think Commissioner Hopkins was actually alluding to this, because when he was talking about a very light, a very simple zoning, that would be what you could do in the rural areas of the parish, is simply put something in there that's a very light zoning. Another point I would have to make is that when this is, if this is adopted in the future, whatever uses are in existence on that date are grandfathered in.
that's a good point. Commissioner Jackson, you still have the floor if you have more questions for Attorney Burnson or Dr. Wilson.
Yeah, I just think that I just think that as we go down this road, I'm interested to see what comes of it. But it just seems as if this thing could come back, because if there was issues with being a trailer being enforced or something, now you're saying that we're about to go to basically universal planning and zoning. I just think that at this point, or at that point, it's definitely not going to be what they wanted. All we're going to hear is, and for us to put something on the books and then not enforce it, we're going to be setting ourselves up for lawsuits and things of that nature. So I just think that my hope is that we don't make it more complicated, because that's where it sounds like it's going. And we're going to eventually turn mighty here. Folks are going to move on and move up, and then people are going to be left to inherit what we put in place. And I would hate 20, 30 years from now, folks say, well, they gave us this mess and then we got to go back and fix it. And when you come to find out that the situation that we had in place is not necessarily perfect, but I don't want perfect to be the enemy of good in this case. And I guess that's where I'm trying to go with it, is we can create a situation that's way more convoluted, way more complex, way more has way more rules and regulations than what they have now. And so I just want us to be very aware of that, is that's what could possibly come of this. So that's it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Point of information.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Just to go back to a discussion that we had in the commission when Mr. Allen came before us and talked about a rural UDC concept, where, from what I remember that discussion, basically they would modify whatever our UDC guidelines are, and then make it so unrestricted for the rural that it would almost go back to what they're doing right now. I understand that policy could be revised to the point that we would actually go back to whatever that was, 150 something, was some number that they use that specify the way they're doing things out there in the rural now. But it will have some teeth and will have some regulation, but not nearly as it is in the urban centers. I mean, that was my understanding, that they had a mechanism by which that could be done. Am I not correct?
Commissioner Burrell, I believe you're correct in the understanding of that's what was going to transpire. And I'll be honest with you, I thought the same thing. I thought that when State Rep McCormick passed H Bill 697, that it was going to revert back and take the MPC out of it. However, I think some consequences of that is that, from what Attorney Bernstein's saying, that in actuality, the UDC that the commission adopted legally will take place in 2022. And unless we create parish UDC or a rural UDC, that is what's going to take place. Attorney Bernstein, would you like to confirm that?
But I understood Mr. Clark said that they have a rural version of the urban UDC, and that it would be so it would be so unrestrictive that it would almost be based upon what they're doing right now. Did I understand that correctly?
Do you mean a rural UDC? You said
they called it something. I remember writing it down. I don't know what Mr. Clark called it, but it was a rural planning. I'm sorry.
I think you're correct. I believe Director Clark has created a rural planning UDC.
Right.
And we were working to adopt that. And then HB 697 came in the middle of us working on that.
So eliminated it?
I don't think he deleted. I think he still has it. We can still address it. But
no, I'm saying that does the state legislation restrict it or eliminate having that rural UDC policy?
No, Commissioner, does not.
Okay.
We could still adopt Director Clark's version of the rural UDC if we chose. Correct, Attorney Bernstein?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now we need to put some mechanisms and some framework in place, but we can pick up with what Mr. Clark and the MPC have been working on for the last year, and they've done a great deal of work on it. And so what we just need to do is put framework and structure in place to move forward with that and adopt it and put it in place as a parish ordinance.
Well, I just didn't want us to reinvent the wheels, because a lot of time when we try to separate things, it costs more. And I'm kind of a budget hawk too, in some ways. And the second thing is, to go out and try to find the expertise to create a whole new mechanism. It doesn't, in this day and time, I don't think that that's necessary, personally.
Mr. Burrell, here's one point that I do want to clarify is Director Clark produced the rural UDC to manage the 5-mile buffer zone outside of the city limits. However, one of the unintended consequences of HB 697 is we are going to achieve parish-wide planning. And I have a feeling the people up in Commissioner Hopkins' area will not be happy with the rural UDC affecting their lifestyle. So when Dr. Wilson creates his recommendations, I think he's going to look at both the rural UDC that Director Clark produced, as well as Commissioner Hopkins' light zoning scenario, and we're going to have to vote on that. I have a feeling if we don't, a lot of rural citizens are not going to want the rural UDC placed parish-wide.
Do you recognize, Mr. Chairman, and this is my final thought, is that then we're going to have an urban UDC, we're going to have a 5-mile buffer, watered down UDC policy, and a rural, total rural development policy or planning policy. Those are 3 different scenarios you just expressed.
We have our work cut out for us. That's the,
okay.
The first thing.
I just wanted to be clear.
I got Commissioner. I've seen Dr. Wilson's hand up the entire time. Dr. Wilson, did you want to address any of that before, or are you still up there from before?
I'm before, but this one comment. At the end of the day, the administration will need us to define the scope and the limits of which you'll want me to research and give you recommendations on.
Okay. We will definitely be. We're going to be taking a lot of long-range meetings this year. This is going to take a while.
Yes, sir.
Let's get ready. I got Commissioner Jackson. I saw you on there. I think he's on the other meeting. I got Attorney Bernstein. Did you need to clarify something? If not, we'll let Commissioner Hopkins.
I did. Commissioners, just wanted to address one thing that Commissioner Burrell said, and that is, as of January 1st, there is no 5-mile buffer. So it's either in the city limits or it's out of the city limits.
You say as of when?
January 1st, 2022.
Now, what caused that change?
That was the adoption of Representative McCormick's bill.
Okay. Well, let me pose one other question, Mr. Chairman. Normally these type of things are not done in a vacuum throughout the nation. Is there another model that someone else has that could help us work through this? Because normally these things are not new inventions. Rather than us creating all of this, is there another model through NACO or
Yes.
through some other city, through the NCSL, or some other organizations that may have information that we can use to as a guideline to go forward?
Commissioner Burrell, that's a great question. I don't know if Director Clark wants to take that. However, Commissioner Hopkins and myself have sat down with him, and what Alan has done very graciously is he started looking at other rural areas of the country, Kentucky, Alabama, not Boston, Massachusetts, and wanted to see what is something that would fit Caddo Parish. And he's actually taken the liberty to already start researching that. So he's going to provide some information to us either in the next upcoming weeks. I don't know if he was prepared to speak about that now, but he is definitely researching your question.
Commissioner
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you for allowing me to interject. We don't have to go far to get an example of what we're talking about, because Belgian Parish has parish-wide planning, and they adopted it several years ago. And I went to some of those meetings along with former Commissioner Jim Smith. We sat through some of those sessions. They have parish-wide, and they had a graduated step. So the closer you are to the city, the more stringent the requirements are. The further out you are from the metropolitan area, the less stringent they are. So they have a template that they've been working it for years. So they're pretty similar.
Sound like you have a band then. Sound like you have
similar
this.
To what we do.
Sound like you have a planning band. If the band meaning, limitations, or you have certain areas that you plan differently.
Yes, sir. Whatever they have, Commissioner Burrell, is what they all agreed to live with.
Okay.
Sounds like we got a good roadmap right next door. Commissioner Hopkins, and then I do hang tight, Commissioner Hopkins. Mr. Everson, you normally don't have your hand up. Is something going on that we need to know about?
No, I was just raising a hand just in the course of y'all's conversation a minute ago for the clarity of the audience. I wanted to make sure people understood there was a lot of conversation about zoning applying inside and outside the city. And while obviously Shreveport is the largest city, I did want to just point out that zoning is for the unincorporated, the parish zoning would be for the unincorporated areas of the parish. There are other incorporated areas who still have their own right and ability to zone within their boundaries that this would not apply to. So just want to make that point of clarification.
That's a good point. Mr. Hopkins, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the administrator to begin negotiations with the proper party for the MPC to administer and enforce zoning regulations. I think this will allow us to, go ahead.
No, I'll second.
Okay. I think this will allow us to begin the process so administration can find out what the cost will be if we do the contracting with the MPC. At the same time, I would ask that the administration also really start putting hard numbers to us doing it inside us ourselves, the parish doing it ourselves in one of our departments, because we need to be able to compare those costs and see what, I think everybody's in agreement. We don't want to put any more costs on the parish if possible. So if we can do it in a way where it's not costing us $100,000 more or $200,000 more a year, then we need to look at that. Again, if we contract this with the MPC, it's a contract. And so we can make that contract for 3 years, 1 year, 5 years, however we think we need to do that. But this allows the process to begin. Then we can come back later and look at our master plan. But I think this begins the process. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Hopkins, could I ask, is that for parish-wide planning, sir?
Yes, let's look. Well, we need to negotiate. Yes, parish-wide. And then while we're doing that, we can look at the tier system in Bossier and things like that, and adjust it as needed.
Okay.
Okay, well, sorry to hear that. I had mine about a month ago.
Commissioner Burrell. Thank you, Mr. Everson.
Sorry, we were trying to identify who it was that had that sound, but then once I heard Commissioner Burrell's voice, we knew who it was.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes, sir. Director Clark.
I guess Commissioner Burrell finally realized he wasn't muted. I just wanted to share with you that we've sit and listened to everything that's happened this morning. Stephen Jean, the deputy director, is in the office with me, and Mr. Rick John, who is the MPC attorney, has been on the call, just an observation. And we think that possibly Mr. Bernstein and Mr. John might need to have a conversation to determine who negotiations need to be done with. We are not a city department. We don't respond any more to the city than we do to the parish. It's equitably a response. So they may need to determine exactly who the administrator needs to start conversations with. We have done some work. We are looking at a whole lot of different things. We didn't just sit back and twiddle our thumbs doing the process from when Act 294 was adopted. And we have some information that will be helpful to the parish. But I just wanted to share that with you, that we're not totally convinced that we are a independent agency. We've never been a department of the city of Shreveport, and we're not totally convinced that the actions of Representative McCormick made us in 2022 a department of the city of Shreveport. So those are some things that you might be interested in, but do know that we are open and willing to work very closely with the parish and come up with solutions. We like to think of ourselves as a agency of solutions and not an agency of problems, as so many people think we are. So we are very open to working very closely with the parish and moving on forward. We are at the point of get ready, get set, go. And I think that what you do this morning may give us the opportunity to start going. Just wanted to share that with you, Chairman Chavez.
Thank you, Director Clark. And I can say you've come to every meeting. You're on every committee meeting that revolves around zoning, and you're at every single parish meeting. So thank you for your interaction. And a lot of people have a negative mindset when it comes to the word MPC, but I can assure the public that Director Clark, since he ended up in that position not too long ago, that he took on a mountain, and he's been working extremely hard. He's been coming to meetings out in the parish with myself, with other commissioners. So he cares about what the rural community wants, and he's here with his team ready to work. So Director Clark, thank you for being willing to work with us. Dr. Wilson, what Director Clark just stated, can you and Attorney Bernstein go sit down with the attorney and you guys figure that out? Because obviously the commissioners are going to know that.
Yes, sir. That's a very good question, because we have to know the agency that we will need to be talking to. That was a very good point. Yes, sir, we will.
That may or may not help us save some money. So, and that's ultimately our goal, is to get great service at less cost. All right, I see no commissioners on the board, and we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Absolutely. Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. And Commissioner Jackson, I didn't hear your response. Commissioner Young and Johnson aren't with us, so we do need.
I do see Commissioner Jackson on here. Let me
Yeah, he is. I think if we could just get him.
text him real quick. Tell him to come pop over on our meeting. He's something very valuable for the parish. He's working with the housing corporation to get all those rental assistant monies set up for us. So it's
What we voting on?
doing dual work.
Commissioner Jackson, yeah, sorry. Right now we're voting on the motion to authorize the administrator to negotiate administration and enforcement of zoning and find out costs, both to do it with the MPC and in-house.
Yes.
Okay,
And
great.
that was parish wide.
Yes, I'm sorry if I didn't state that.
Mhm.
So that motion passes with 3 of 5 voting for it and 2 being absent.
And that's just the feasibility, right?
That's correct. Just
Okay.
to come up with recommendations.
Okay. Well, it sounded like his recommendation was already in the one we got, but we can do it again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Everson.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next item?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that next item is discussing the proposal from the Shreveport Fire Department. If you'll recall, at a recent commission meeting, Fire Chief Wolverton made a presentation, and this item was added to follow up on that discussion.
Chief, are you on with us?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, sir. I wanted to, the author of the legislation, I believe he's in a different meeting. So I don't really know what he had prepared to say. However, I definitely know that you have some remarks and would like to speak on this to give your presentation to the committee. So you have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. And I won't take up all your time. I gave a full presentation on February the 4th and shared some information with all the things that the Shreveport Fire Department provides parish-wide. There were several items that I spoke about, and I took some questions from several of you on it. But really, the nuts and bolts of it come down to we're just asking for some help in providing the best EMS service we can to the city of Shreveport, which, as I stated, all 12 commissioners actually have their boundaries running to the city limits of Shreveport in some form or fashion. Many are completely in the city limits of Shreveport, but every commissioner's district lines come into the city limits of Shreveport, which means you represent the citizens of Shreveport also, as Commissioner Burrell put into words a while ago. The city is right inside the parish, so you represent them also at the parish level. So I brought forward 2 options. One was option 1, and I think Jeff, if you wanted to, I sent them to you. I didn't know if you were going to share them or not. If not, I can share on my screen.
I can share them either way, whatever you prefer. And just for reference, I did link those to the agenda.
Okay, so everybody sees what I'm talking about then?
Chief, give me 1 second, Chief. I got Commissioner Jackson. I know he's on that other meeting, but he's got his hand up. So if he wanted to address you really quick, I wanted to give him the opportunity. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, Dr. Wilson, I'm just curious. From the $18 million that the city of Shreveport got for CARES Act reimbursement, has anybody reached out to the parish to help make us whole from the dollars that we expended?
No, sir.
What about the sheriff's office? They got 13 million. Has anybody reached out to the parish to make us whole on the dollars that we got, that we expended to help the community respond to COVID-19?
No, sir.
Okay. And we came up short about what, close to $1 million, $1.5 million that we never got back.
Pretty close.
Okay. So I just, again, my concern here, and then, Congress is sending more aid. And my understanding is that between the city and the parish, close to $80 million may be showing up at our doorstep within the next 2 months. It just seems like I'm trying to figure out, how does the parish get tasked with this responsibility? And then we just had a conversation, a pretty thorough conversation, about an hour on. We just had a pretty thorough conversation about an hour on the folks in the rural areas don't want to be affiliated with city services, and so what is it going to be? Do we want city services, or don't we want city services provided out there? Because this would essentially be a city service provided to the rural areas, wouldn't it?
Already being provided, Commissioner Jackson.
Okay, just like the MPC is already providing a city service. Mr. Clark, don't y'all already provide a service to the rural area?
And
Mr. Clark, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir, he does.
That is a service that's provided to the rural areas. And what I'm hearing is they don't want city services out there. Is that not what I understood that to have been? They don't want to be associated with the city's master plan. They don't want to be associated with the city. Is that not what I have heard?
Mr. Jackson, respectfully, I think you're convoluting the issue because I haven't seen any parish resident refuse emergency service help.
Chief,
so
the services are, we can't
you're lumping it all into one thing, and I'm talking about a specific emergency service that we provide. Not only the EMS, but all the things that I spoke about that we provide, such as the bomb tech response to the entire parish of Caddo.
So we're at the point to where we're allowing citizens to pick and choose a la carte what city services they want and don't want.
Well, that's who we work for. That's who I work for.
Well, and I work for them too. And but we also have to be efficient in our planning and consistent in our planning. And I'm about consistency, okay? I'm not about just what people want, because if it was about what people want, Allendale wouldn't look the way it looks today. If it was all about what people wanted. I'm trying to figure out, how is it that the Caddo Parish Commission, a body that has we don't have any responsibility for, and I've been told that, we don't have a police force, we don't have a fire department. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we continue to keep getting asked to foot the bill for some of these services that are being provided, but then we turn around and the citizens, and I'm not saying that the fire department is doing anything wrong, I'm saying, how do we get to the point to where citizens are telling us we don't want to be part of the planning process, but we want to be part of the fire protection process? And I'm just trying to balance the two out, because I'm trying to figure out if I'm coming or going, and I can't be doing both. Dr. Wilson?
Well, you got a good point. I mean, the statement speaks for itself.
I'm just trying to, am I going crazy? Because I cannot be hearing them saying, we want these services from the city, but we want the parish. We just had an hour-long conversation, ladies and gentlemen, about separating and severing ties with the city of Shreveport for planning services. And now we're going to flip the page right over and say, well, now we need y'all to foot the bill for more trucks to run out there. Why don't we just pay for one of those fire districts to get the truck or something? I'm just trying to get some consistency and some balance. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be ugly. I like to try to be consistent and on the record as being consistent. Because I'm going to support what's right. I'm going to support what we can do. But nobody has reached out to Caddo Parish to help solve any of our budget ills over the last year, and we did a lot. The city of Shreveport was just in the paper in December saying they had a $25 million budget surplus. Nobody reached out to say, hey, Cato, here's at least half on GP, here's half. We saw y'all out there doing all that stuff. We got a $25 million surplus. Here's half of it. So I just want some consistency. I'm not anti anything. I'm not beating up or picking on anybody. I want us to be consistent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really have to. I'm gonna have to jump in a minute, but I want us to be consistent.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, and thanks for what you're doing on that other call. I know Commissioner Hopkins, I see you nodding your head a lot. There's a lot of comments to be made on this because I'll tell you what. Go ahead, Commissioner Hopkins. You take this.
Well, I'm not saying yay or nay, but I want to point out, yeah, we don't have any fire. We're not in charge of fire protection, but we did create these fire districts. And I have 3 fire districts in my commission district. And I do know that there are needs for equipment. There are needs for training. And in the past, those districts have been told, no, don't bring it to the commission. Y'all need to figure it out. And before we start doling money out, I want to know what these fire districts need. If we're gonna dole it out, just like we did with the sheriff and those police vehicles and all these towns, before we start giving money out, because if these fire districts fail, we do have a responsibility because we created them. So, we need to be very careful on what we do. Like I said, I'm not anti anything, but I, as a former mayor of a municipality, I never asked for anything except for maybe the state, which they owed us. But I didn't ask much from, I don't think I ever asked anything from Caddo Parish. And we need protection in the rural area. And let's just look at this slowly. I don't think we need to get in a hurry, but I'm not against looking at it. But I too have another meeting I've got to run to, so I'm going to have to get off. But I think it's something we can continue to look at. I think, Chief, I think you're wrong. I don't think any of my districts inside the city limits of Shreveport. Now, you do provide the bomb tech and things like that. So that's a mutual jurisdiction type of deal, I guess. And y'all have been helping the past to District 1. I know that much. So, but I think I just want to be careful and not give everything to Peter over here and Paul not have anything. Right. So thank you.
Can I make just before you get off, Mr. Hopkins, Commissioner Hopkins, there is a parish-wide project. We just had the Caddo Fire Chiefs meeting yesterday, where we meet once every other month, all the Caddo Fire Chiefs. There is a project we've been working on that does affect all parish departments, and it's the replacement of our fire reporting system through the Caddo 911 Center. We're on a system that began back in 1999. It's very antiquated, and we're trying to come in line with a new reporting system. And there is some upfront cost to that. And there was actually discussion yesterday because they knew I was coming to speak with y'all today. And there was some discussion yesterday about approaching the parish to cover some of that upfront cost. So if that's something from a parish perspective, that absolutely every parish fire district and fire department would benefit from, because we all, as I stated earlier, our communication division collects all 911 calls. We dispatch all fire districts in the whole parish, whether a 911 call comes in from Vivian or from down here and from the port or somewhere like that. So so that would be a parish project. I could get you some more information on that. I know all the Caddo Fire Chiefs would be in agreement in requesting that support from y'all. because it is a parish-wide reporting system replacement program. So that's something I could get you information on. I understand where you're at on just the city and providing some help to just the city. So I definitely understand wanting to make sure we, want to take care of everyone. So if that's something you're interested in getting some information on, I can collect that and get it to you.
The chief, if you would send that to each one of the commissioners, I think that's easier for me to support because it's going to touch each fire district and each, just really Shreveport has a fire department, but because everything else these fire districts cover. But I mean, it's equitable and it touches all the districts and nobody's left out. So that's an interest there, I think.
Yes, sir. I'll put that together and advise you what the upfront costs. We're working with Martha Carter, who's the director of the Cattle 911 Center, and I'll get all that information to the commissioners today or no later than tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Commissioner Chavez, can I make one comment? I have to run to another meeting as well.
Yes, sir. I see you on the board.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be on record saying that the administration, we've been very generous in the past supporting multiple of agencies with support on equipment. However, the administration is not in favor of adding anyone into our budget process, our annual operating budget process, because how our funds are gathered. Our funds are pretty restrictive in nature. And we had 18 funds that are pretty restrictive. We have to spend those items on the things that people appropriate when they went and vote on it at the ballot box. So we are not in favor of adding anybody to our operational budget. So, but the commission in the past has been generous enough to help with purchase of equipment, and we don't have an issue with that. Chief Wolverton just mentioned the 911 system. We just spent quite a few bit of money upgrading our new radio system, and we've always been a part of anything that affects the 911 system with respect to parish-wide coverage. So we're on board with that. But certainly, I just want to be on record saying we don't want to add anybody to our operational budget because we just don't have the latitude to do so.
Thank
you, Dr. Wilson. Commissioner Hopkins, I see you on the board, but I know you had to go. Did you have to make a comment before you took off?
No, sir.
Okay. Chief, obviously, a lot of people are asking, have you asked the city council for this money? Because they're toting the $25 million surplus. I know that's a direct and a hard question to ask, but I'm getting messages asking me.
Yeah, I had it in my budget request, unfunded, when we were in the budget process. But to be honest with you, I still haven't got a clear picture on exactly how much money has came in. I've heard different numbers, but I have not approached that yet. No, sir. And as I said, we did get an equipment package to purchase 3 engines and some medic units. I stated that in my previous meeting on February the 4th. However, if you recall, when we were trying to pass the 2019 bond package, we were expressing in our presentations the status of my fleet and how old it is. I think the average age of my fleet now is about 19 years old. I have equipment that is 33 and 34 years old right now that's still frontline responding. That's unheard of in accordance to National Fire Protection Association standards. So we are chipping away at that, but even with that help, there's still a lot of great need out there. So again, I was approaching y'all, as I stated in the last meeting, an opportunity to come alongside the fire department and help us improve service to a large majority of the citizens that you all represent, and be a part of that. And that's what I was asking for. Each commission has to see fit to vote the way they want to vote. If you want to work together on this endeavor, if not, then I'll start seeking other ways to try to do it.
Chief, I want to commend you. Give me one second, Commissioner Burrow. I know you're stuck in a tough position. I know the bond failed, and I know why it failed. I have hopes that in the near future, after this ice storm, a new bond may get passed via some improved infrastructure and things like fire protection is super important for the citizens of Shreveport. So I have a feeling it may be a little bit easier to get that by in a future date. But I don't blame you. If I was in your position, I would exhaust every attempt to ask every single person for money to try to help out the city citizens. Commissioner Burrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't want to weigh in on the political side, but my take on the bond issue when it was going through, I think it got wrapped up in too much politics. I think the people would have passed it if we weren't in a hotbed of partisan politics at that time. That's just on that note. The second, what I wanted to mention to Chief Wolverton, I know the sheriff department gets a separate allocation from the commission, and you all being law enforcement folks, have you all had any conversation there? Or that relationship is such that you all don't really devy around into money, more operation than money itself?
I'm not understanding. We're not
okay.
We're not commissioned officers. I do have 6.
No. What I'm saying, Chief, is
First responders.
Yeah, we have a separate budget from the sheriff, although we support and we are on obligation, as I understand it, from the state standpoint, to fund certain things in the sheriff's department. And I know they got, although the city got 24 million, it's my understanding that they got a kind of a lump sum too from whatever source. You said that you were going to be asking everybody. My question is, have you shared that with the sheriff department rather than just the commission?
No, sir. I've not spoken to Sheriff Prager about this endeavor at all. No, sir.
Do you have an interest in doing so since you're going to be contacting everyone?
I would have an interest in doing maybe a portion of it, such as the bomb technician response, because that is that falls under the FBI. All 6 of our bomb technicians are licensed technicians, bomb squad technicians through the FBI, and we provide that service for the entire parish. There are no bomb technicians in any other law enforcement agency in Caddo Parish. Well, let me take that back. FBI has one here, but they're federal. But as far as the parish goes, we're the only ones that provide that. So I wouldn't have any issue approaching him and requesting help with funding those things, such as on the second option, you'll see the 2 bomb tech suits that we have that are well past their service life, and that's I think about a $70,000 investment, about $35,000 a piece for each suit.
Well, a lot of these things add up. As you know, I spent 8 years on the city council back 20 years ago, and we were having the same issues. And then when I ran for commission, I found out that basically the parish didn't work with the city and vice versa. And that was really a shock to me because you had overlapping services. And I've always thought that if I ever got on the commission, I would try to find a way that we could share more with the city, since I've been on the city side. But after finding out that the sheriff department did not really answer to the commission, then we had no autonomy. I mean, we had no authority there. Then I was figured that we would have a little deja vu moment and a little moment where we could sit down and discuss those things, that we could actually share more with each other and come out better for the citizens overall, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's it for me.
Commissioner Burrell, your old friend, the sheriff, if he's watching, may have just spit his coffee out as he was.
Well, look, I'm already on his bad side, I know, and I don't want to do any more because he may show up at my doorstep, and I can't handle that.
No, he's a great guy. But
I know we've been friends a long time.
It's a good question. If you're going to ask everybody, don't leave out the sheriff.
Oh yeah.
Commissioner Jackson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me again say, Chief Wolverton, I am not anti anything, and let me make sure that I'm clear. I appreciate the work that the men and women of the fire department does every day. Okay. But I'm going to sort of reiterate, because I've been in the chat talking as I've been kind of listening in to both of my meetings here. I would like to make sure that I heard some ifs, or we maybe, or we will consider. I think that before this body agrees to funding, there should be a conversation with the sheriff's office, because the sheriff collects a parish-wide tax, okay? And the sheriff is the chief public safety and chief law enforcement officer for the parish. More than likely, those calls, the law enforcement agency that's out of those rural calls is the sheriff's office. And I have never said that we would not support. What I have tried to encourage is that we make sure that everybody is at the table, and particularly after last year, where everybody received COVID reimbursement, but they received large scale COVID reimbursements that help create surpluses, but the commission. We have always, as Dr. Wilson said, we have always stepped up to the plate to say we will support in some type of way, or we will do something to be a partner in it. But to assume the responsibility for it when we know that there are other partners out there, it's not fair to place that in our lap. You are not wrong for asking. You're doing what anybody who was a good and wise leader would do, is you're asking, okay? But what I'm suggesting is that we have a conversation. I believe y'all have a round table, either quarterly or something, but it's not wrong for you to ask the appropriate law enforcement agencies here to step up. The Shreveport Fire Department's budget is twice the size of the entire parish budget that we adopt. The Shreveport Fire Department's budget is twice, maybe more, the entire budget that we adopt. So, you know, it's just hard for us to continue to say, you know, we're the sole responsibility for it. So I'm willing to support something. If everybody is a part of it. We have to start bringing everybody to the table to be partners in these endeavors. Because I have been one of the ones who have said we have to do more to collaborate. We say, I don't want anybody to leave this meeting thinking that I'm against it. I want us to be consistent, particularly with the residents up there who are asking for certain things, but saying they don't want certain things. We have to be consistent. I don't think the citizens in Allendale can say, yeah, we want city water, but we don't want the city to do code enforcement. I think we have to come to the table and have honest conversations and say, we can't function effectively and efficiently as a governmental body when we start doing this sort of a la carte, kind of pick and choose what services we want. So I don't want you to think that my comments were directed at you as the chief or the men and women at the fire department.
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Chief Wolverton, we've lost our quorum because we lost a couple of commissioners, and then we had 2 absent to begin with. So we legally can't vote on anything, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to wrap this up. And you guys do a great job. Just like I said, I don't blame you for being down here asking it. If I was to have to vote on a citywide referendum on a bond issue to increase my property taxes to help you guys out, I'll press yes all day long from a citizen, from me to you. So thank you for what you guys do, but I want to give you the floor to wrap this up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. I appreciate that support too. Again, just hoping we can do something together. As a follow-up, I will forward the parish-wide project that the Caddo Fire Chiefs discussed yesterday. I will get that to everyone today, no later than tomorrow. That's just really a call to Ms. Carter and getting all that information and see what kind of number we're looking at. So I'll get that to you. Maybe that may be a better opportunity, to be as as Commissioner Jackson saying, consistent across the board, and it affects all the parish departments. So it may be a better opportunity to provide that help. And then I can begin looking for other ways to try to do this with our department. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'll be here anytime. Please feel free to email me if you have any other further questions. And after I send you the email about the potential parish project that y'all can support, feel free to ask any questions, and I'll get the answer to those questions for you.
I feel like that'll be a lot easier for the commission to get behind when it truly touches all the districts, and we don't have to worry about these other entities coming in and helping the fund. So I look forward to working with you on that.
Yep.
Mr. Everson, since we do not legally have a quorum, we don't have to make a motion to adjourn. So we'll just close out, and everybody have a great day, and we'll see you, I think, at our next committee meeting.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.